Hello. I think we are going live. Should we go live and do this product stream? Let's check it out. Let's press a button. Let's do it. Cool. So we're live. Thank you for tuning in. This is the first GraphCMS product demo that we're going to do live. This will be repeated every month, and we'll take a little bit of a focus on some of the interesting features that we have. So if you haven't heard of GraphCMS, we are a GraphQL API that has a wonderful automatically generated query and mutation API. But as well as all of that, you have the ability to invite your content editors to manage content. So you can think of us like a headless GraphQL CMS. So what I'm going to do today is just kind of go through creating a project, and then we'll create we'll create some queries. Maybe we'll use some mutations with GraphQL, and we'll just kind of have a look around the product. And at the very end, we'll have a look at the UI extensions, which is a new feature that was kind of put into kind of a preview stage a few months ago. So yeah, we'll just kind of take it casual today, and we'll just have a look through some of the kind of the features and functionalities that we've got here. So feel free to sign up and get signed in, and if you want to, you can by all means follow along. But yeah, let's just dive in. So if you're curious on when the next live stream is, we have a blog post. The next one will be covering granular permissions. Then after we'll be looking at the management SDK with some new updates to that. And then we'll be looking at something new that's coming in the December episode. So we'll release a schedule for next year as well, before the year's out, on some of the things that we'll cover then. But this is going to be a very casual kind of run through in a stream. So let's get into it. If you've signed up or you're signing up now, we've got documentation that'll get you going with the API. And of course, we've got some user guides here on how to use the app and navigate yourself around it. So yeah, feel free to leave a comment as well if you've got any questions when I run through this. This will be available afterwards as well. You'll not find it on the channel, but I'm more than happy to kind of send you a link to it. We kind of want to keep these fresh and live. So once you've signed in, your home screen will look a little bit like this. I've modified my browser so you can't see all of my projects, but you'll have a list of all of your projects at the top when you have one. So what I'm going to do is just create a new project in this video. But if you're interested in following along or trying this out later, by all means, get started with one of our kind of pre-built schemas or projects. We have a commerce shop, a blog, and a marketing website. And if you open this, all of the links to the actual demo of these and the GitHub repo and how you can deploy these is available within the application as well. So that's really cool. Feel free to check those out. And then we've got these other kind of quick podcast and travel site schemas. These will just kind of give you some basic content to get going with. So, nobody likes to try something out and not have any content or kind of anything in place. This is a great way to kind of get going, understand how all the pieces fit together without kind of having to learn it all yourself. So a bit of a cheat. And if you're kind of creating or, say you're experimenting or building another front end framework, we'll provide the data for that in one of these examples. So feel free to check these out and use it for what you need. So, yeah, we'll give the project a name. This is just going to be for screencasts, okay? So I've been working on a website to host screencasts, so I thought it might be interesting just to show that kind of use case on how this looks. So first of all, I'll give my product a name. I can choose to give it a description, or I can just leave it blank. And then we've got to make an important decision on where the data is stored for your project. Now, this isn't this data it's where it's stored. If one of these regions doesn't fit, by all means, get in touch and we can kind of tailor something to your needs. You can talk to the sales team and go through that process, and we can put the data wherever you like. And then you can query the data from one of the CDN nodes that we have available as well. So that's pretty cool. I'm going to choose the Europe because that's closest to me. I'm going to go ahead and create a project. Yeah, and on the form here, whoops. Yep. So on the form here, we can choose to choose a pricing plan. Just click the free one. Just get going. You can invite your team as well. So very easily here, you can invite your team. I'll show you where you can find that a little bit later as well. So feel free to skip that part. So when you first log in, this is the dashboard, and what you'll see here is sort of a quick step guide on getting started with your GraphCMS project. So what we'll do is we'll just follow this today and have a look through some additional things as well. So we'll need to set up a schema. So let's click that and have a look. By default, every project will have a asset model. That asset model can also be customized as well. So if we enable the system fields, you'll see by default that we have quite a lot of kind of custom fields here that comes with the asset model. And assets can be for documents, PDFs, Word docs, Excel sheets, even videos, audio files, images. You can upload those as assets, and you can relate those to your project as well, which is really, really cool. So why don't we just kind of create our first model? That would be worth doing. So we can click add here, and we'll click a display name. So I know that I need to have an instructor model. So this is for me or whoever creates a video. There will be an instructor for each of the episodes that we release. So let's create that model, and we'll dive in. So let's now have a look at maybe adding some fields. So you've seen how quick that was to create a model as well. You can just go ahead and use all of the defaults that we provide here. So I'm not going to spend too long on what each of these are. When you're following along, a lot of the descriptions will tell you what these do. So by all means, if you have got a question when I'm going through this today, because we don't have a lot of time, feel free to leave a comment and I'll address it as well. But if you're following along and you log in, have a look at some of the descriptions for the fields and what these fields mean. But just assume if I've typed something in here, I'm going to be kind of following the defaults that we provide. And there is some other options as well, but we'll be covering those on additional videos as well. So this is the schema editor. And what this is essentially how you design your GraphQL API. So you don't need to load any kind of code or you don't have to define your own schema definition language by editing an SDL somewhere. We just provide it in a nice UI that you can click from a selection of different types here, and you can add them to your schema. So here we have an instructor model. And if we click single line text, I'm going to choose the display name, the API ID, which is name. That's what's returned in the GraphQL API. Display name is what's shown to the content editor. And there's a few other options as well. We can obviously leave a description, and this description will be passed through to your GraphQL schema as well. So when you're introspecting that or you're viewing the documentation within Graphical, that description will show in there. So it's, that's great for developers, and it's also great for the content editors as well. So setting the title field, this is really helpful when you are creating relations, and you can see what you've related instead of just looking at an ID. That's not important for this model. We can cover this maybe a little bit later, or actually no. Let's set this as a title field. We'll have a look at that. We also cover localization as well, so you can localize certain fields. So in this case, I'm not going to have a look at localization today. I'll show you how this works in the UI and how you can add different locales, but we'll cover localization in a future episode. But just TLDR is you can create a translation for each of the fields in each of the document types that you've got. So if you just wanted to translate the name or just add a translation for a name or a description, you can do that. You've got the control to do that. And the content editor will render multiple inputs. And you can even, and as we'll see in a future video on granular permissions, you can even specify certain user groups or certain user types to edit that content. So if someone is in a certain group called maybe EN translators, then they could just translate EN, or you could have French, German, whatever it be. They can only edit that content. So it's really good. It's really granular to that level as well. We've got a few validation types as well. Again, we can make this field required. So whenever you're trying to edit any of the content, you'll not be able to save it if you don't add a name in this example. We can also set this field to unique and stuff as well, which is cool. Cool. Right, so I'm not going to choose anything else here. I'm just going to click create. I'm going to go fast through the next stuff because we've got a lot to dive into and we've got about 30 minutes today. So I'm going to add a model for episode. And quickly what we'll do is we'll add, we'll maybe add a preview URL. We'll come back to this actually. We'll add a preview URL when we add a slug. Okay, cool. So we'll add the model for the episode. And yeah, let's give the episode a number. So I'm setting this as a string on purpose. We'll create that as well. What I could maybe do in this instance is make this unique. Could be a bad idea. Maybe we'll make that required as well. Whoops. Okay, so that is a number field, that is a string on purpose, that is required and unique. And I'll tell you why that is in just a sec. Then we'll add a title for our episode. And again, we'll make this required. And we'll set that as a title field as well. Next, I'm going to add a slug, and we'll call this slug. And we're going to generate the slug from a template. Now, the reason why I made number a string was so I can use it in my slug. So here I can have number, and then I can have hyphen title inside of the for my slug and for my URLs. Validations. Yeah, we should make this unique maybe. I'm not going to change anything else. We could specify a character count if you wanted to in here. And there's quite a bit of control that you've got there, but I'll let you have a look at that and dive into the details. So we'll save that up, and next let's have a look at adding a multi-line description, or we could choose to add rich text. What should we go with here? Maybe it's rich text. So we'll add a description for each of our episodes. Rich text options. You can also embed other assets or embeds. You can embed other models within your rich text field. At the moment, we support assets. We will be supporting others soon. I think as it stands today, you can only embed assets, but you can enable that if you need that functionality. Yeah, let's save this. Cool. Right. Now then, where are we? We've added a description and rich text, and hey, look at this. I can reorder all of this as well. And this will reflect how the order appears for content editors as well. So as they're filling out content, you might want to kind of put all the required fields at the top or whatever. You've got full control over how that looks as well inside of here. Let's just add a few more. Why don't we just add the actual... Let's add another string for the video URL. The video URL could be a YouTube link, Vimeo, Wistia. We can just add the link in there. Right, let's have a look. Maybe now let's have a look at some of the other things we've got. So we can add a number, float, Boolean. Could add a Boolean here and say this is a premium video, for example. Let's just do that. Add a premium, and this will be a Boolean that'll show up inside of the GraphQL the GraphQL schema as a Boolean as well. And then we can add an asset. So the asset is a system model, a default model, like I mentioned. Maybe as well to say this is the cover image. Every episode has a cover. Will not make it required. You could accept multiple assets as well. So if we wanted to have multiple cover images, you can choose to add that as well. But we'll skip that. So yeah, I'm just going to go fast through everything else. Lastly, down here, we've got the ability to reference other models as well. So we've got the option to do a few things here. We can have a polymorphic relation to multiple models. So you can then assign and relate multiple models as one field. So the easiest example that I can give is a page that has blocks, and those blocks could be of different types, like a testimonial block, a carousel, a 2-column layout, a 3-column layout, a hero, a nav bar, a footer, that kind of thing. Those would be all block types, or they would be referenced to as blocks, but they would all kind of have their own respective types as well. For us, we don't need that. We're just going to continue here. Yeah. Let's say the model to reference will be instructor, right? And yeah, we've got the direction as well for the model. So we got the one-way and two-way. One-way, you can only, as it says, you can only query that content from one side, and two-way, that's what I'm going to choose today. And in this case, I'm going to say that many episodes can be related to many instructors. So an instructor has and belongs to many episodes and vice versa. So that is what we need. We'll continue. I'm going to leave the defaults of everything else. We do have a question on which database GraphCMS uses internally to save the data. So we're based on Postgres, and we handle everything for you. So any of the schema changes you make, we will do everything under the hood to manage that. So you haven't got to worry about that. We'll take care of it all. So now our schema is shaping up to be really nice. And what I'm going to do now is quickly switch over to the content editor. And I'm going to add a instructor content entry. So I'm just going to add my name here. And then I'm going to, maybe we'll go back, and if we go back to instructor, maybe to add a photo of me to that instructor model as well. So we'll switch back to content editing and go to instructor, and we'll create a new entry for me here. Then we'll add a photo, and I'm going to upload one that I already have. It's a bit of an old photo of me, I must admit, but we'll roll it. And I'm going to go ahead and save this. Now notice there is the option to publish as well, and I'm going to come on to that in just a short while. But let's skip back to the episode here, and we'll maybe add our first episode here as well. So this is episode 1, and I recorded a video recently on GraphQL with Insomnia. So as you can see, as I'm typing now, it's already pre-populated this slug field, which is really, really handy. Obviously, I can customize this. I can obviously throw validation errors by incorrectly using this, or I can regenerate or clear. But obviously, clearing it would throw the required validation warning to us. So then we've got this rich text area here, and I'm just going to paste in a description. And because this is rich text, we can do some really cool things. We can actually grab some text and make this bold. We can even add links and underline things as well. And this will be returned to us in a specific AST, and that's how we kind of work with it when we render it. And we've got a whole library on rendering that rich text value at the moment with React. We've got a React library for rendering that, but obviously you can get the AST and you can render it with whatever front end you need to. But yeah, it's looking cool. So we've got the video URL. Let's just copy that. So this is the video URL to YouTube in which this episode is. This isn't a premium video, but I wanted to add this kind of option here for you in the schema so you can see what happens. We're rendering some text boxes for a lot of the strings that we're saving here, but in this case we'll render a premium checkbox for true and false here. Then we've got a cover. I'm going to go ahead and upload a cover image as well. Maybe we can, do we have a cover image anywhere? Maybe we'll just choose a default one. I might not be able to upload that. Yeah, there we go. So that's done. And then further on down, we can now choose to create and add a new instructor. So if I click that, I can obviously go ahead and create a new instructor. Or if I know one already exists, I can select from here. And inside of here, you've got the ability to kind of filter like you would normally, and I'll show you that in just a sec. But you can go through and find the instructor if you've got a lot of them. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to save this out now. And now that's saved, this document is good. I can leave this page and all is good. Up here, I can preview this in the playground. I'll show you that soon. We can duplicate this or we could delete it. So yeah, I'm going to come back to publishing because I want to talk about content stages in just a short while. But let's next have a look at the asset section in here. So as I've been editing content, you see me inside of the instructor content editor, and you see me inside of the episode content form as well. And all of the assets that I upload, I can globally manage through this assets page here as well. So we've got some default views and system views and custom views and whatever down here. I can choose to create view groups and store all of this. So let's just do something really quick here. Let's say that the created at date is less than, well, it's not going to work, greater than today, which isn't going to work, greater than or equal to, it's the time, sorry, less than or equal to. So yeah, that's like everything before, like right now. What we can do is we can create an asset view here. So created before, I don't know, what's the date? The 15th. And then I can save that asset view. So if you are frequently searching for assets or any type of content, you can save that filter. And then when you click on the left here, you can go and you can, you'll have that filter automatically applied. And if we switch to content episodes here, we can do the exact same in here as well. So if I wanted to get all episodes that have been recently updated, say, greater than, maybe as I save everything that was published or created in September, I could do greater than the 1st, for example, and less than something else. Then I can save it in the same way here. So if I click test, that is now here. And when I click that, that will show those fields here as well. So you can, I like to think of these as folders in some way. I know a lot of people refer to them as folders. These are the saved content views. Basically, whatever filter you get, you can save, which is really nice. So you can also, if we create a view group here, you could drag these into that view group as well. So you can have multiple view groups and you can collapse those as well. So there's a lot of people who have a lot of content, as you can imagine. It's sometimes nice to be able to group and reorder some of that stuff. So that functionality is there as well. So we do have a question. Will there be any precautions need to be taken care of when showing rich text data in the front end, like dangerously set inner HTML with React or with any of the others? Yes and no. If you're using something like GraphCMS and you know that the content has been created by you, then it's kind of safe to use dangerously set in HTML because you know the source, you trust it. I wouldn't have a form that just adds data to GraphCMS and you display that on the page. But the rich text library allows you to customize and override each of the tags that it renders. So you can visually change it. You can look at you could inspect what the actual content is, and you could render something different based on whatever it is that you're doing. But certainly it's precaution-wise, it's something you should be wary of and know about when working with the content. But the rich text render will actually render React nodes, but you could obviously also query for the raw HTML, and I'll show you that in a second. And then you could just use that with dangerously set HTML as well. But yeah, something to keep in mind. But if you trust the source, then I think that's kind of okay. But do your own due diligence there. So moving on from the asset stuff and filtering, let's have a look at the API playground. And this is typically my workflow. I'll create some schema, I'll add some dummy content, or if I was smart, at the beginning, I would have chose one of the pre-built templates so I can just forget about doing all of that. But I wanted to show you how easy it was to kind of create that GraphQL API. So now inside of the API playground here, if I launch the documentation explorer on the right and I go to query, if I scroll down, we've got some kind of system queries. We've got node, we've got users. Users are people who manage content. We've got a relay API baked in here as well. I can query all of my assets. And if I keep on scrolling down, you'll now see we've got instructors. So this instructors query is automatically generated for us. And we have a singular instructor query as well. And then if we go down, we've got the ability to fetch versions of those, and then we've got episodes. So if we switch to mutation, we've got some similar ones in here as well. If I scroll down, you'll see we've got delete instructor, upsert, publish, unpublish, update, and create. So wow, when we talked about on the homepage here, build your GraphQL content API instantly, that is that, right? We've created some schema, we've added some content, and we've got this API that we can now use to query and mutate data. So why don't we actually try that? You could use the Explorer to make your make this a little bit quicker, but I'm fairly comfortable in writing GraphQL queries. So let's fetch the ID. Maybe it's the title, maybe it's the slug, because we wrote that slug that was automatically generated. And if I hit Control Space here, I can choose any one of these. We'll break in the description. Now you'll see I tried to move on from description to quick, and it's giving me a warning. Why? If I hover over this, you'll see that the type here is rich text. And if I hold Command or Control, whatever it is on Windows, and we click that, you'll see it opens up inside the Documentation Explorer, and we can see the type here. So we'll see that this is a custom type representing a rich text value, and we've got a few different fields in here. So we can choose to bring the raw value back, which is the EST. We can choose to bring the HTML back as well, text, and markdown. Now I'm not going to bring all of those down. I'm just going to bring back the raw and HTML. Maybe as we get the video URL, and we'll get the instructors of this video as well. Now remember that we said that the instructor relation was a has and belongs to many relation. It was a many to many. The kind of the query here, the field has been pluralized for us, so we can get all of the instructors, which is cool. So I'm going to get the ID, I'll get the name, and we added a photo as well, if I remember right. So photo, again, this is of the asset type, and that's a system GraphQL type and a system model that we give you. And that comes with all of the API features as well. So in this case, I'm just going to grab the URL and I'm going to click run here. And you'll see we get the AST from the rich text field, that is description. So we get all of the children here. This is text, it's italic, it's underlined. And again, this one is bold. And then we've got the rest of the text down here. Now, based on the question that we had earlier around dangerously set into HTML, that's something we could do with the HTML value here. We could just take this and render it on the page. I know where the content comes from. I wrote that content. I trust it. So I would just kind of render that to the page. But like I say, we do have a library for that as well. So if we just quickly have a look at that while we're talking about it, we've got a rich text React renderer as well. So it takes in that children that I was talking about and shown in the response. Where are we? There we are. So it takes in this children here array and all of the different nodes here. It can just render. By default, it just renders what you'd expect with all of the HTML, nodes and the attributes that you get there. It will pass all of the children down. But you can obviously override all of the renderers as well, which is really, really powerful. So yeah, this is really cool. Check this out if you're interested. A lot of work's been done on this, and it's really nice. It's really nice to use. But we'll dedicate a full episode to that because there's so much to go over with that. Then if I scroll down, I can see I get my video URL, and that's what I inserted via the UI before. And then I get my instructors array, and inside of here I've got an ID to that. I've got the name, and I've got that photo URL as well. And if I where we go, we scroll back up. I'm now just going to kind of remove some of this, just so I can show you something. Let's now grab the stage. Okay, so this by default is fetching from the default stage draft. So I can obviously change this to published, and I'm going to run this again. And we don't have any content. Why is this? Well, when we create that content, we only click staged, save, and that was saved to the draft stage. We didn't click publish. So let's maybe have a look at that now. So if we go back to the content editor, and we'll edit the episode, this episode here. We'll not change anything, but we will just click publish. Now, one in here, or just some info really, that we're about to publish the episode, but it's attached to things that aren't published. They're still in draft. So it's a nice quick thing that we can do here. We can also opt to publish those relations as well. So we'll do that. We'll publish everything there. I'll leave a link for the React text renderer, of course. Yes, in the chat. Hopefully this comes through on YouTube. There we go. Awesome. So so we've saved that, we've published that, and you can see on the right here, we now get stages published. And if we made a change, maybe as we save this, you'll now see that the stage published is outdated, and that's because the draft, what we see here, is newer than what's published. And if I click this little drop down, I can compare, and I can see, okay, yeah, the title is different here. And as a kind of something I can do as a content editor, I could just choose to revert that. The one that's published looks better. Let's save that, and then we'll close that out. But it's still outdated because we did do a little, did do something with that draft. We did change it a few times, so it's always nice just to republish that. And notice now there isn't any warning because everything that we're linking to is published. So there isn't anything more to do there. Now back inside of the API playground, if I make a query and I've chose here the publish stage, you'll see that we get the episode in the publish stage. Now if I change this back to default stage and I open up the query arguments here, we've got a few different things here, and all of this is automatically generated and managed for us. I can choose to specify the stage inside of here as well. So within my query, I can say, get me everything from the draft stage or get me everything from the publish stage. You can also create your own content stages as well. So you could have something in the middle that's called QA. So if I head on over to the settings and go to content, you can see here, if I had a project that wasn't in the free plan, I could add an additional content stage, and I could choose to publish my content to that. So if you're interested, there is a trial where you can use that feature for 2 weeks. Feel free, sign up, choose that plan, and you'll be able to kind of create that custom content stage. But for the purposes of this demo, that's fine. We've got the published and draft stage. And typically, one of the things just to kind of highlight here as well is when you're querying content from GraphCMS on the front end, you might want to have a, in development, you'd certainly want to fetch draft data or published data, whatever your preference was. I like to query draft data because that means I can change some of the content. I can add some fake records that don't end up on my live site, but I can also query in production. I can set my API key to only fetch from the production stage. But yeah, there's tons of things you can do in the API here, and like I say, we will dedicate a full episode on each of these features as well. So maybe it's the API, we go through exploring the content API in one of maybe it's the next episode or the one after that. We dive into that a little bit more. So yeah, you can also specify locales as well. We haven't gone through locales in this video. Like I say, we'll do that in a future video, but feel free to kind of click around and play around with that. Just to kind of finish off this kind of content query side of things, you can see here, let's just create an instructor because that'll be quicker. This API is all automatically generated and managed for you. Let's now create a new instructor called GraphCMS, and we'll fetch the name and ID. So if I run that mutation, you'll see here it's brought the ID back and this here. So I can now take that ID and I could choose to fetch the instructor by ID. So if I specify where ID is equal to this, I can then fetch the name GraphCMS. So we handle all of that for you. All of the content APIs for retrieving data and obviously mutating, querying mutations we've got covered. And that's for all or just one, or you want to kind of paginate. All of that data is available if you have a look on the type for the model that you create. So the quick shortcut to get to here is just to hold your command key on Mac and click the query. That will open the documentation, and you can see that it returns an array of episodes, or it returns many episodes here, and we've got the different arguments that that's documented here as well, which is cool. Right, well, let's now have a look at webhooks. So we don't have any webhooks, and let's quickly open up the webhook site. We'll just create a new one off screen. 1 second. Okay, so here, notification, we'll just call this. So imagine some content changed. Imagine you had a workflow that was create a bit of content, create a new episode, and you wanted to notify everybody on your newsletter. What you could do is you could set a webhook. So when you publish content, you could trigger a URL, an endpoint, and you can run some code in there to email all of your users, your email list or whatever. So this is an endpoint here that I'm going to add. I can also choose to add a signing key. So let me just add something here, and that is that's going to sign my webhook as well. So on the other end, I can validate whether or not this request came from GraphCMS, which is really nice. So the content model, I said I wanted to only run this when a new episode was published, and if you leave these empty, it's with anything. If anything happens, it notifies you. But we just want episode when an episode is published. Maybe only if it's published. We don't want to notify anybody if it's unpublished, right? Okay, cool. So let's create that. So now we've got this webhook. It's live. It's listening for any content changes. Now if I come back and come to content here, I'm going to go to the episode. Let's go to the one that we already had. It doesn't really matter. We can publish it again, and that will trigger, fingers crossed, that will trigger the webhook. So if I bring this in, you'll see here that we've got a webhook that was triggered from GraphCMS. So then I can do whatever I need to do with this. You can see it's got the payload included here, like the description, who created it, and whatever else. So you could use this to then run your own custom logic to do what you need to do. So let's close that out. And yeah, I'm now going to switch over to settings, and I'm going to have a look at using UI extensions. That's the next 10 minutes we'll cover using UI extensions. So what are UI extensions? Let's open the docs and find out. So a UI extension is really a way that you can customize the GraphCMS UI. So you might not like the default input for our text, for example, something very simple. You might want to render a drop-down that someone can select from, where the values come from your own API. You can do that with a UI extension. You can you can write some code, host that application, and we will render that, and we'll pass any kind of API keys to run it to that as well. So there's some documentation here on installing it. This is still a very new and in preview feature, so feel free to follow those guides here. There's a lot of things around local development. You can work on your local machine at localhost, and GraphCMS can render that from localhost as well, which is really nice. We've got libraries for JavaScript, the vanilla SDK, and then we've got the React SDK with others coming in the future. And we've got different types of renderers. So you can explore the docs and get all into those. And we do have videos and things on this and examples over on GitHub. But let's just quickly have a look at what it looks like to actually run one of these UI extensions. So inside of my GraphCMS settings here, if we go down to UI extensions and we add a UI extension, what we can do is run the compatibility test. Now this is something that's already hosted on, in this case it's hosted on Vercel, but it's gone. What we'll do is we'll go and check that your extension has the correct signature and things, and then you can specify some keys here. So my cloud name, I believe, is Notrab, and my public API key we'll paste in here, and then I can customize whatever I like here, the name of this UI extension. So you'll see here, this looks a bit familiar, and this is on when we were editing the schema, this looks like that, and this is exactly what this is. This allows us to add this UI extension to that schema. So let's have a look at authorizing and installing this. So we can see here that it's successfully added it, and we have a form input that is of the type JSON, and that type JSON is key. That's what will be returned to us in the API, and that's what type will be available in the schema. So now if we go back to the schema and we go to, let's go to the episode, and where we had the cover image, let's just delete that cover, right? Let's delete it, because we don't no longer want to use the embedded asset model that GraphCMS gives you. If we scroll down and on the right hand side here, we click the Cloudinary asset, and that's available under the JSON scalar type. If we click that, and we now say cover image here, and we've got all of the same options as we had before, but now if I create that, and we switch back to content editing, and we edit the episode that we had before. Now if we scroll down, I remove that image, right? We don't have that relation to the asset model anymore. What we now can do is we can pick a cover, and I've already logged into Cloudinary, so this is going to pop up, but whoa, we've got Cloudinary's UI and widget inside of GraphCMS. So you'll see that we've got this thing here. Okay, I've selected this image, I click insert, and wow, we've actually got that cover that if I switch back to Cloudinary, this is inside of my own Cloudinary account, but I actually have this custom UI that I installed with the UI extension. And if we click save, let's publish it as well so it's up to date. If we go back to the API playground and we go to the query that we want to write, we'll bring that cover back. Now we'll bring cover here, and you'll see it's bringing me everything back from Cloudinary. So everything you'd expect is here. That the JSON, when we clicked to insert the image, that JSON data from Cloudinary was inserted into GraphCMS, and we'll just store that as JSON. So that's really powerful. I'm able to source content from another service and store it within my content model as JSON, which is cool. So thank you. Yes, this is an awesome feature. The Cloudinary integration is actually open source as well. So if we head on over to GraphCMS Examples, I'll leave a link in the chat. If we look at the Cloudinary input example, we have got a hosted version of this just for demonstration purposes. I highly recommend that you take this and deploy it yourself, so you can customize it, just customize it as much as you need to. If we have a look inside of the app file here, you'll see all of the code here. If I bump the font, we are using the Cloudinary React SDK, and then we're using the GraphCMS SDK as well. I'm not going to go into detail. The docs explain how to kind of render all of this and invoke this. But what you can do is you can create some custom logic in here that's essentially listening for things and managing on-click handlers, launching the Cloudinary, and when something's clicked in Cloudinary, it's passing it to GraphCMS SDK, the UI extension SDK, to then take that value and save it inside of GraphCMS. So there's a bit of code in here that you can have a read through and understand how this particular one's going. If you're looking for something that is just simpler, if you have a look at the basic input, what this does, this is an actual Next.js application. And again, this is kind of the bare bones. This is a simple input that takes the value from GraphCMS, from the React hook, and it also, when something changes, it will call the onChange handler and pass the value of that input. And then you see down here everything we've got here, how we wrap that and invoke it. And we've got some declaration configuration here as well. This is what shows when you run that compatibility test. We'll check what extension type it is, what the field type must be, what's the name, and what features does it use. And we'll show you all of that stuff as well, which is really, really nice. So yeah, I think we're about done on that. If anyone does have any remaining questions, feel free to just throw them in the chat. And I'd be happy to answer them now. Or if you head on over to slack.graphcms.com, if you've got any questions, feel free to ask those in Slack as well. But we've got a ton of examples on GitHub. Doesn't matter what your front-end stack is or what feature you want to use. A lot of our features and implementation frameworks are kind of showcased here. So whether you're using Gatsby, Next, Nuxt, React, JS itself with Create React App, Svelte with SvelteKit, Vue, whatever it be. Even more traditional things like Express and server-side rendering stuff using mutations. I'm managing asset uploads, which we haven't covered. Everything is available on here as well. So have a look at graphcms.com. If you head on over to the blog and you check the live product demos, this has been the first, just kind of going through, creating a schema. The next one, we'll have a look at how we can do everything we just did, but with the SDK. So creating a schema, we'll do that with the SDK. And we'll maybe skip out some of the content editing parts as well. But yeah, feel free to ask any questions. And if you've got any questions for the next episode or something you'd like to see in the future, feel free to let me know. But yeah, hopefully you found this interesting and you've learned something. See you in the next one. Thank you.